right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's live training. It's actually kind of a double training because I wasn't able to go live last week. So we're going to, of course, talk about perfectionism, pain relief, and my pressure release process. But then we'll also talk a little bit about what we were meant to talk about last week, which is kind of the overlooked strategy for showing up fully with chronic pain and how to build some momentum there. If you are someone who's feeling like you're trapped in the cycle of perfectionism and chronic pain, where you feel like you just cannot escape that constant pressure and stress, today is going to be a great training for you because I'm going to reveal how my pressure release process can transform your experience of pain and stress by shifting you from a state of threat to a state of safety. And for those of you who are new to my world, my name is Dr. Anna Redmond. I'm a clinical psychologist, I'm a chronic pain strategist, and I am dedicated to helping high achieving women, women who would describe themselves as high achievers, maybe type A, maybe there's a bit of perfectionism in there, and to help them stop being controlled by their flare ups. As a psychologist with a specialized training in pain, I have taken everything I've learned about the brain, the mind, and the body, and I brought it together to create a unique approach specifically for people who describe themselves this way: high achievers, perfectionists with chronic pain. And I call this my anti threat system. And this addresses unhelpful thought patterns, barrier creating mindsets, perfectionism, or just that inner critical voice that gets in the way of true healing for so many of us. Today, specifically, we're going to talk about how my pressure release process addresses the role that perfectionism and self criticism play in exacerbating chronic pain. And so, in today's episode, I'll explain how this process can help you shift your brain's perception from threat to safety, opening up your pathway for more lasting relief. And so, before we dive in, know that if you're ready to take the next step, just book a call with me to see how my program can transform your approach to activity, pain management, and ultimately your pain recovery. And if you're curious whether it's even a good fit, just reach out to me. My DMs are always open. Okay, and I have my coffee here. Hopefully, you all do, and maybe a pen and a piece of paper because we're going to get into it now. Many of us with chronic pain are trapped in this very high pressure cycle of perfectionism and self criticism, where we believe that if we can just keep pushing through, keep ignoring the pain, keep trying to meet our own high standards, do it all perfectly, that our pain will sort of just subside. And here's what this often looks like in women that I speak with. They are overworking despite pain. They have unrealistic expectations. So women might set excessively high standards for themselves in every aspect of life: work, family, personal care, and feel guilty or inadequate when they fall short. They believe that if they just meet these expectations, their pain will be more manageable or that they will prove they are still capable. They avoid self care. So, due to the drive for perfectionism, some women would neglect self care activities, thinking that taking time for themselves is a sign of weakness or failure. Many women describe to me this fear of disappointing others, where perfectionism can drive women to maintain an image of competence and control, even if it means sacrificing their own well being. They might fear letting others down or being judged if they don't meet their own high standards, so they keep pushing despite their pain. They describe self criticism that comes with flare ups. So, when pain flares up, perfectionistic tendencies can lead to harsh self judgment. Women often describe to me that they're blaming themselves for not managing their pain well enough. They're feeling like they're failing or doing something wrong, rather than understanding that flare ups are a natural part of that journey of recovery of chronic pain. They have difficulty asking for help. So, perfectionists may struggle to ask for or accept help from others, believing that they should be able to handle everything on their own. They have inflexibility in their routine. So, these women that describe this to me, they describe this rigid adherence to routines or plans, even when their body is telling them to adjust. They might feel that any deviation from their ideal schedule is a failure. And there's this constant self-evaluation. So if you feel like you have these perfectionistic tendencies, you also might continuously evaluate your own performance and progress, feeling pressure to constantly improve and achieve more. And this ongoing self-assessment can create additional stress and prevent them from celebrating small victories or finding contentment in their current state. But here's the truth, and I'm going to try to make this as simple as I can because our bodily systems are very complex, as you know. But one simple thing to know is that our brain operates around threat and safety or reward. So perfectionism, perfectionistic tendencies, and self-criticism fall into that category of threat. Perfectionism and self-criticism are actually increasing our stress levels and keeping our brain in a constant state of threat. This heightened state of threat can only exacerbate pain and then it makes it harder to find relief. So you might think that pushing yourself to be perfect will eventually lead to healing, or at least you'll just lead you to be able to keep going. But this belief is actually preventing you from achieving relief. And the real issue is not your efforts, but the constant internal pressure and the way that your brain perceives threat. This pressure builds up and it builds up and it keeps you in a heightened state of stress, making it harder for any new coping behaviors to take hold. So, just knowing this, being aware of it, I want us all just for a second to close our eyes and put our hand right on our heart, because this symbol alone can provide a little bit of self compassion, a little bit of calm. Let's release a little bit of pressure right now that we've become aware and we've identified what could be happening here. Here's where my pressure release process comes in. This approach is designed to gradually ease the internal pressure associated with perfectionism and self criticism. By focusing on reducing the threat response to your brain, we can help you shift toward a state of safety and self compassion. Because a brain in a high state of threat creates more pain to protect you. It is more sensitive, it is more overprotective. But here's how we can help you shift toward a state of safety and self compassion. The first step is to recognize perfectionism as a barrier to new coping behaviors. Perfectionism often acts as an invisible barrier. It makes it hard to adopt new coping strategies. So imagine you're trying to build a new, healthier routine, but you keep running into obstacles because your inner critic demands flawlessness. This pressure can be overwhelming. It can create a cycle where you feel stuck. So, for instance, I've had so many clients that have felt trapped by their high standards. And for many of them, their high standards meant that every attempt to manage their pain had to be flawless. Where they didn't meet these expectations, they felt even more discouraged, exacerbating their pain and frustration. We also need to reframe self critical thoughts. This is part of that pressure release process to lower the brain's threat response. Self critical thoughts can trigger a heightened threat response in the brain. It intensifies pain and it complicates recovery. So think of it like trying to drive a car with the emergency brake on. The car, which is your progress, can't move smoothly because the brake, which is self criticism, is holding it back. So, people I work with often have found that every self critical thought about not being good enough at manage their pain was almost like slamming on the brakes. By reframing these thoughts, recognizing that perfectionism isn't necessary and that progress, no matter how small, is valuable, we can ease that internal pressure and make steady progress. No, reframing your thoughts is not easy, but these thought patterns have to take a solid hold. And I like to call this sort of a reframing practice. We are practicing and reteaching our brain to develop new, more helpful thinking patterns. Now, the next piece of this is that we have to change that threat to safety ratio. We need safety to be higher than threat for our brain. And we need to teach the brain that it's safe to release perfectionistic tendencies and adopt more flexible, compassionate self standards. Now, if your nervous system is used to a chronic state of stress, threat, and perfectionism, it's going to try to put on the brakes when you try to apply something that feels different. So know that this will happen at first, and I want you to continue to practice. This is a practice, which means we continue. So the pressure release process, my pressure release process aims to transform your brain's perception from a constant state of threat to one of safety and compassion. So this shift is really crucial, especially for people with an overprotective brain and a sensitive nervous system, because it directly impacts your experience of pain and fatigue. So kind of imagine your brain as a teeter-totter. And on one side, you have the constant threat of failure and self-criticism. And on the other side, you want safety and self-compassion. And when your brain is overprotective, it tends to amplify threats and minimize safety. And this results in an overactive nervous system. This overactivity can translate into heightened sensitivity to pain and fatigue. An overprotective brain, constantly on high alert, signals to your nervous system that you're in danger even when you're not. And this constant state of alertness can cause your nervous system to react more intensely to stressors, more intensely creating symptoms like pain and fatigue. And so the goal of my pressure release process is to balance that teeter totter. So we're doing this by gradually reducing the threat step by step and increasing the perception of safety so you can recalibrate your nervous system. It's like teaching your brain that it's safe to just ease off the emergency brake and that you're not in constant danger. Many of my clients have found, and I just did this morning in my coaching call, that when we teach our brains to release some of these perfectionistic or high standards and embrace self compassion, we can reduce our threat response, not only in that moment, but it can start to generalize to other experiences, other times of the day, other things that bring threat as well. And this shift allows their nervous systems to settle, reducing the intensity of their pain and fatigue. So for many of them, this has meant, they're recognizing the pressure. They understand how that internal pressure from perfectionism and self-criticism exacerbates their symptoms. They're reframing their thoughts. So they're shifting from a constant threat mindset to one of self-compassion, helping to ease the nervous system's overactivity. They're creating safety. So they're establishing a balanced perspective where the brain feels safe to release the expectations and approach pain management more effectively and less reactively. And then they're experiencing relief. So they're noticing a reduction in pain and fatigue as the nervous system learns to respond more calmly. So, as you ease internal pressure associated with perfectionism and self criticism, you create space for self compassion and a more flexible approach to managing what's happening in that moment for you of pain. So, think of it like releasing steam from a pressure cooker. When the pressure is released gradually, the cooker or your mind can function better and more safely, allowing the food or your life and goals to be prepared perfectly. So, clients who implemented this process with me have found that they can create better, balanced routines that accommodating their pain without being overwhelmed by it, which allows them to heal and find their unique recovery. They felt more in control, less stressed, better able to engage in activities they love. They had fewer obstacles and smaller walls to climb over along the way to recovery. And I've seen some incredible transformations using this process. So, for example, I had a client years ago, Amanda, who struggled with chronic pain. It was exacerbated by her own harsh self judgment. And it was exacerbated because she was always pushing through. She pushed through on good days so she could finish her to do list. She would do tasks until they were done. She didn't want to disappoint people in her life, and then she'd crash. And in the crash, she would feel horrible about herself, unproductive, like a failure, useless, lazy. And through the pressure release process, she learned to reframe her self critical thoughts and gradually reduce that internal pressure. So she learned strategies to be productive without triggering her pain and have an acceptance of good enough as she built up her productivity and activity levels without triggering those flare ups. As a result, not only did she see a significant decrease in her pain levels, but she felt more at peace with herself. So instead of aiming for unattainable perfection, I tell my clients to focus on gradual release of pressure, small manageable changes in how you approach your day, and a good enough mentality as we start small. Self compassion practices, adopting self compassion techniques to counteract the inner critic, as well as reframing um, unhelpful thoughts that create this perceived threat for the brain. And then having safe and flexible standards. So allowing yourself to be imperfect and have an understanding that it doesn't diminish your worth or effectiveness. And if this all sounds like so you, because I have women respond to me sometimes when I talk about this, this is so me. I finally feel heard. No one has ever acknowledged this part of me before. To start implementing the pressure release process in your own life, I invite you to book a call. We can explore how things like perfectionism, people pleasing, pushing through, and that type A high achiever personality can be derailing your pain recovery process. And in this call, I can show you where my program can optimize your pain recovery efforts, and we can work together to tailor this process to your unique needs, which is the whole point of my program. This is hard to do alone, and I'd be honored to help you make that shift. So if you'd like to book a call, you can see that I have here in the comments a link to do that. It's a short call where, like I said, it's just a chance to get to know you better, the struggles that you're facing in your own chronic pain journey, and then how and whether working with me makes sense and how that might optimize what you're doing. Now, I promised you all that we would also talk about the information from last week that we couldn't talk about because I was sick. So we're going to do that now. I'm just going to take a quick sip of my coffee and we're going to totally switch gears, like new theme, new topic. The title for this training last week was supposed to be The Overlooked Strategy for Showing Up Fully with Chronic Pain, the Momentum Mapping Method. And where this came from, the place where this title and this topic came from, is because women I talk to tell me, like, I just want to be able to go to my kids' soccer games and cheer them on from the sidelines without worrying that sitting on those hard bleachers would trigger my pain. I wish I could plan a family weekend getaway without the constant fear that my pain will flare up, forcing me to cancel last minute and disappoint everyone. I want to be able to play with my kids at the park. I want to push them on the swings, be present in their joy instead of sitting on the bench feeling guilty because my pain keeps me from participating. Does this sound familiar to you? Is there some version of this that shows up in your own life? Because many high achieving women with chronic pain do feel this weight of guilt and inadequacy when they can't fully participate in the events and the activities that matter the most. So, whether that's canceling plans, pushing through despite pain, or avoiding commitments altogether out of fear, they just slowly feel their joy slipping away. And the unpredictability of their condition can often leave them anxious. They're afraid they won't be able to show up when it counts, and it really causes strain on their relationships and their self esteem. So, these women, when they're telling me about this, they just long for a way to break free from this exhausting cycle, to engage with the people and the moments that they love without the constant worry of a flare up. And they need a practical, reliable method to manage their energy and make plans without feeling like they're on the verge of letting others or themselves down. And so today I'm going to reveal a simple but powerful strategy. I'm still trying to get better. So if I cough a bit now that we're deep into this training, you know why. But my powerful strategy is one that I call the momentum mapping method. It helps you reclaim your joy and still show up fully without that fear of flare ups or guilt. So you finally have a way to show up for what matters without that constant fear of overdoing it or disappointing others. Um, and I for years I've spoken to women who are really looking for a clear path to have better balance, less flare ups, the confidence to just show up for the things that they planned and the important events in their lives without feeling depleted or inadequate. I love teaching this strategy and I can't wait to talk to you about it. Before we move on, again, if you already kind of know that this is you and you need a strategy, something that allows you to wake up with that confidence that you can do your day and show up for what's important, please just click on that link in the DM in the comments, book a call with me. We can explore what's going on for you and how my program can guide you on a clear path to creating an effective strategy that's unique to you to help you re-engage with your life. So always, if you have any questions or want to see if it's the right fit, my DMs are always open. Please feel free to reach out anytime. So, tell me in the comments if this feels true to you. Many of you might be thinking, if I could just push through the pain, everything would be fine. Or maybe you feel guilty every time you have to cancel plans. You're worried you'll let people down. Or you believe that chronic pain means you have to choose between showing up fully or taking care of yourself. And women often tell me that the thoughts that go through their mind are, I shouldn't be this way. I should be able to handle this. It's as if you're trying to live up to an impossible standard, like running a marathon on a broken leg. You literally feel guilty when you have to cancel plans, thinking that if you just tried harder, you could be more present and engaged in the moments that matter. But in reality, these beliefs, these thoughts, they can trap you in a cycle of pain and guilt. And it's not about simply pushing through or feeling like you're falling short. The real challenge is understanding how to balance your energy and pain in a way that allows you to engage with life meaningfully without pushing yourself to the point of suffering or canceling everything completely. The belief that you should simply push through the pain or cancel plans to avoid suffering is fundamentally flawed. And I'm here to tell you. It's like trying to swim upstream against a strong current, and you might put in all of your effort, but you're not making progress, and they're only wearing yourself out in the process. Pushing through doesn't address the underlying issues of pain management, it just adds to the stress and to the strain. So, think about it this way: pushing through chronic pain is like trying to drive a car with a warning light on and hoping it's just going to turn off on its own. You might keep going, but without addressing the underlying problem, you risk breaking down even more. Similarly, canceling plans or withdrawing from activities, it only creates a void where joy and connection should be, leaving you feeling isolated and disconnected. And the truth is, again, here to tell you the truth, this approach can trap you in a cycle of pain and guilt. So every time you push too hard, you risk worsening your condition, and then you face the emotional toll of having to cancel plans or pull back. So one of my clients shared with me recently, I just feel like I'm constantly on the edge. If I push too hard, I'll suffer, but if I don't push enough, I'll miss out on everything. And the truth is, pushing through the pain or constantly canceling plans only deepens those feelings of guilt and inadequacy. It strains relationships. It leaves you feeling like you're missing out on the joys of life. And again, the real issue isn't whether you can push through. It's that you don't have a plan to manage your energy and your pain in a sustainable way. So what do I do instead, Dr. Redmond? Okay, so this is where my momentum mapping system comes in. It's a strategy that helps you pace yourself to manage your energy and align your activities with your personal values without burning out or worsening your pain. By mapping out your day with intention, you can take control over when and how you show up without fear of flare ups. And here's how it works. Here's everything you need to know about momentum mapping. First, values identification. We're going to talk about, let's see, one, two, three things. The first is values identification. Values identification is the process of uncovering what truly matters to you. It's about defining the core values that guide your life and decisions. It's not about listing things you care about simply, but it's a deep understanding of which values are essential to your fulfillment and joy. For example, you might discover that family, creativity, personal growth, these are central to your well being. By clarifying your goals, you create a foundation for making choices that align with your true self rather than just reacting to pain, circumstances, others' needs, perfectionism, and guilt, which are all super common among women that I work with. The second thing is baselining. Baselining involves establishing a clear understanding of your current state. This means getting an accurate picture of where you stand in terms of pain levels, energy, and well being. It's like setting a starting point on a map before you start out on a journey. By knowing your baseline, you can better gauge how much you can handle in this moment now and make informed decisions about what activities or commitments are manageable. We need to find a starting place. We can't build without finding our baseline. We can't gradually progress without finding our true baseline because it provides a reference for tracking progress and making adjustments based on real data rather than assumptions. And accepting the baseline can be hard. It might be less than what you thought it would be, especially if we're starting out small. But we can build from this, and from there, you can tolerate more with less flare ups and less sensitivity. And so I help women work through the barriers that inevitably come with this stage. And those barriers of accepting their baseline are often people pleasing, perfectionism, feelings of failure. And then the third thing is pacing. So, pacing is the art of managing your energy and your activities in a way that prevents overload. It's about finding a rhythm that allows you to engage in meaningful activities without pushing yourself to the point of exhaustion or pain. So instead of a constant push, pacing involves strategic intervals of activity and rest. And this helps maintain a sustainable level of engagement, reduce risk of flare ups, and ensure that you can participate in life without overextending yourself. So this is crazy important because movement is the number one safety generator for pain, the number one safety generator for pain, if we do it without overexerting and causing pain. And pacing is how we do that. And so, what all of this allows you to do is first to plan ahead. Planning ahead is the proactive approach to managing your chronic pain and energy levels. It involves anticipating future needs and potential challenges rather than reacting in the moment. So, by planning ahead, you can create strategies for managing your activities, setting realistic goals, and preparing for potential flare ups. So, this might include scheduling breaks, setting boundaries, and communicating your needs with others. It's about taking control of your circumstances to ensure that you're ready to handle whatever comes your way. And this is so important because it shifts the event that you're attending or just your day in general from something perceived as threat by your brain to something perceived as safety or safer by your brain. When your brain believes that you are safe, there's less of a need to create pain to protect you. And the second thing this whole momentum mapping method does for you is that it helps you respond instead of react. Responding instead of reacting emphasizes the importance of thoughtful action over immediate action. So when you respond, you take time to consider your options and make decisions based on your values and baseline information. Reacting, on the other hand, is often driven by immediate emotions or pain, which can lead to impulsive choices that may not serve your long term well being. By practicing response over reaction, you can build resilience and create a more balanced approach to managing your pain in your overall life. So, this makes it more likely that you can attend the important things without flaring up your pain. It's all about working smarter rather than harder. So, I want to talk to you about an example of this, a client that I worked with before. Her name was Melissa. She was sort of this high achieving professional. She was a loving mother. She'd always been kind of this go getter, but as her chronic pain intensified, her body really became a source of distress. So every day she grappled with like this deep sensitivity that made even the smallest activities feel overwhelming. So the slightest movement or commitment could trigger a cascade of pain. It left her feeling trapped in her own body. Her fear of pain became so consuming that she avoided making plans altogether. And I know this is familiar for some of you. She worried that any commitment, no matter how small, could lead to a painful flare up. So when she did muster up the courage to show up for events, she would push through her discomfort only to crash afterward. And these crashes were debilitating for her. It left her bedridden sometimes, feeling guilty for not fully participating in her life. And she found herself stuck in this cycle, avoiding plans to prevent pain or pushing through only to suffer severe consequences later. And she felt like she was constantly battling her body and missing out on the joys of life, and she was stuck in the cycle of guilt, frustration, and isolation. And so here's how the momentum mapping method was a game changer for her. We started with values identification, her core values, and through this process she realized that family time and personal growth were crucial to her sense of fulfillment. When she understood these values, she could see why participating in family activities and personal projects mattered to her so much, even despite her pain. Then we moved on to baseline. She established her baseline. She followed a system that I gave her of tracking her activities and energy throughout her days. She found her baseline and it gave her a clear understanding of her limits and her patterns. It helped her at the start avoid overestimating what she could handle. And knowing her starting point allowed her to make more informed decisions about her daily activities. So while this baseline was really a hard pill for her to swallow at first, she knew it was something she could very much build upon, making it temporary. Finally, with her baseline in mind, she learned the art of pacing. So instead of pushing through to the point of exhaustion, she began to implement strategic breaks and adjust her activity levels based on how her body was feeling. For instance, she started scheduling short, manageable periods of activity followed by rest, which helped her stay engaged in her life without crashing. While she was feeling a little bit skeptical of maintaining her productivity with this new baseline, it was so small at first. She actually found that she could be more productive for longer during the day instead of just crashing all afternoon. She also found that by doing this on most days, she could see the sensitivity in her body decreasing. So this helped her feel more confident if there was a big family event coming up. All of this allowed her to plan ahead. She embraced proactive planning. She anticipated potential flare ups. She made preparations to manage them. She scheduled her activities, set realistic goals so that she could plan and adjust her commitments based on her energy levels. This all allowed her to participate in important events without that constant fear of unexpected pain. All of this also allowed her to respond instead of react. She shifted from reacting impulsively to responding thoughtfully instead of making decisions based only on immediate pain or immediate emotions like guilt or what she thought others expected of her or unreasonably high standards she placed on herself. She took time to evaluate her options. This mindful approach helped her make choices that aligned with her values and her well being rather than being driven by fear or guilt. And with these strategies in place, her life began to change. She was able to participate in family activities and personal projects with greater ease and less pain as time went on. By pacing herself and planning ahead, she reduced the frequency and severity of her crashes. And most importantly, she found a new sense of balance and control, and this helped her ease her guilt and frustration. So, this wasn't a quick fix. So I should say that my program is 3 to 4 months depending on payment, and she was able to accomplish this in that period of time, but it wasn't overnight. It wasn't that kind of like overnight quick fix, right? She had to work at that. She had to engage in self-compassion. She had to work through the barriers and she had to show up. And we had to work together. We had to find the strategy. She had to show up. But she was ready. She was ready for the hard work of change. And this is how she was successful. Besides, told me later she would take this type of sustainable system over a quick fix any day. And I think her journey with momentum mapping allowed her to reconnect with her values and live a more engaged life without that constant cycle of pain and guilt. So she no longer felt like she was just surviving. She was thriving in a way that honored both her needs and her well being. And that was amazing. And it was amazing to watch. Now, imagine what that would feel like to stop fearing flare ups and start living your life on your own terms. If you're ready to take the next step, I invite you to book a call with me. During this call, we will dive into your current pain management strategies. We'll identify the key areas where you can make some impactful changes. We can talk about how my program can leverage your strengths, your skills, your lifestyle, so you can break free from that cycle of temporary fixes and be more empowered as you move forward with self-led success. So drop me a message, a DM, or you can comment book in the comments below, or you can click my calendar link in the comments to book a call just to kind of explore this. Alternatively, if you'd like to discuss further before booking, feel free to send me a DM. My DMs are always open. I'll respond within a day and I'll ask you some questions. We can sort of sort through what's going on. I'm here to help. I'm genuinely here to help. So hopefully that was helpful for you. Please don't hesitate to reach out with questions. I don't see any questions in the comments right now, so I'm going to end for today, but I'll talk to everyone soon. Take care.